Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing as the Honorable Linda Jackson gives our prayer this evening.
Almighty God, we acknowledge that you will hold us to account for the way we legislate and administer the affairs of our township and its fine people. We pray for your guidance as we do so. We pray that you will find us protecting the rights of all at all times, that our community and this nation will fulfill all of your purposes. Amen.
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 Clerk Sanders, please take the roll.
Clerk Sanders here. Trustee Jackson?
Here.
Treasurer Kavanaugh? Here. Trustee Taylor? Absent. Trustee King?
Here.
Trustee Reeves? Absent. Supervisor McCray?
Present. There's a quorum, so we can move along. Next is approval of the agenda.
To the chair.
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
I move for the approval of the agenda as submitted.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next we have citizen comments. First I have Michelle Mancini.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, Honorable Board, everyone in attendance. I wanted to share a couple things with you through the Community and Economic Development Department. The first is that we are working on an analysis of fair housing impediments that we are doing with Westland and the City of Livonia combined. And part of that, we have put out a survey in relation to fair housing, and that QR code and the information on it is on the front page of our township website. There's also a link if you're on the community development page. It takes approximately 10 minutes to fill it out. It's anonymous. The first question does ask if you're from Redford, Livonia, or the City of Westland. That's the only thing that's, that'll tie to where it's from, but other than that, it's completely anonymous. So if anyone would, take the time to fill that out, that will help us in preparing that document. Additionally, through the DDA, we are currently selling, I take it back, we're not selling, we're giving them away, banners for Memorial Day. What we're looking for is anyone who passed away while in service, whether it's combat or active duty, we would like to honor them with a free banner. So if a family member that lives in Redford happen to have someone that passed away that fits that criteria, they can go on and fill out their information for a banner that the DDA is paying for to display for the month of May. We hope to keep those banners and display them multiple years. And again, it's completely free as a small token, obviously of appreciation for their service, their sacrifice, and just to honor them. So there's also a flyer on the township website for that. If you know of anybody, unfortunately we have a short turnaround on that. They need to be ordered by March 20th. So anybody can get the word out, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have David Valencia.
Good evening, trustees. My name is David Valencia. On April 22nd, 25, in this room, there was a project approved to rewrite a zoning ordinance using state funds and our favorite contractor, Wade Trim. I think that this is like a good thing, right, overall. But this is an opportunity for the township to actively seek citizen input before decisions are made on this, and before before that you're reading it for the first time and then all of a sudden it's law, right? So, because all of these things take time, right? So having, just simply having the citizens involved from the onset versus people complaining once they don't like something seems like a good way to operate. And I say this because I've looked online. I can't find any statement of work. We came to a meeting last week that was canceled, and we were told that nothing would be available until it was written. So that's kind of what's cueing this. So I'm just here to say I think that myself and other citizens here and in Bedford should be given the opportunity publicly, loudly, not just having these scheduled meetings that you can only find them on one little part of the website, basically. So that's all I've got for you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That ends our citizens' comments. So now I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing on the proposed tax levy to support for year 2026 through 2027 budget.
To the chair,
Clerk Sanders, I'm sorry.
I make the motion to open up the public hearing on the proposed tax levy to support the proposed fiscal year 2026 through 27 budget.
Support.
Moved and supported. Do we need a roll call on that? No?
Roll call?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, roll call vote, please.
Absolutely. Trustee Reese, absent. Trustee King.
Here.
Clerk Sanders here. Trustee Taylor, absent. Treasurer Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Trustee Jackson. Here. Supervisor McCray.
Yes, motion carries. So, Director Bonner.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, Honorable Board. This evening, I have a short presentation for the purposes of the public hearing for the public, which will be displayed on the monitors in the room. Just to remind everyone that this is a required component based on Public Act 2, the Uniform Budgeting Act, which requires that all communities in the state of Michigan, prior to adopting the General Fund Appropriations Act, must hold a public hearing to discuss the tax levy that is being proposed to support that budget. And so that is what we are doing this evening. All of this is information that was presented to the board members in the January 21st presentation of the budget. But for the purposes of tonight's hearing for the public, I am focusing primarily on the tax levy, as that is the subject of the hearing. So, looking back at the history of property taxes and assessments in Redford Township over the last 11 years, you can see the history of what is happening here. And I am projecting that at this time, based on the information that I have, that we will see a small decrease in the street lighting millage and a small increase in the special assessment district for police and fire. Overall, we still have the second lowest cumulative millage rate that we've had in the past 11 years. And depending on whether or not we actually have to make those changes to street lighting and or the SAD come fall, when it is time to set the tax levy, it may in actuality be the lowest overall tax millage rate that we've had in the last 11 years. I will point out, as I have in the past, that I'm concerned that I'm concerned that the senior transportation levy is no longer generating enough revenue to cover the expenses for senior transportation, and that is currently scheduled to expire in, it's scheduled to expire in 2031, but the board may want to consider at some point whether or not we should ask the residents to approve a modification to that millage, as it is not covering the cost for senior transportation at this time. So that is the 11-year look back. I'm also concerned as to what may happen if we get hit with another millage reduction fraction as a result of Headley. Redford Township, as far as I can tell, is the only community in all of Wayne County that has had a millage reduction fraction every single year for the past 10 years plus. And that is because we are a fully developed community that does not really have the ability for new construction to take place, which is what kind of offsets those calculations and prevents that rollback from happening. So it is just a situation that we are in that is not great. I think everybody knows that Headley and property taxes is a big topic of conversation in Lansing right now. It is something that needs to be looked at, but it is a statewide issue that they need to look at how Headley and Proposal A are working together. I do like to look back at how have property taxes and our assessments changed since our peak taxable value year. So again, going back to Proposal A of 1994, that is what created the taxable value line on those statements we received from the assessors every March regarding the values of our homes. And if we were able to set the millage rate at the same level of taxable value that we were in 2007, we would actually see a drastic reduction in our millage rates. Proposal A and Headley in combination have created this scenario that even though the actual value of the property in Redford Township in 2026 far exceeds the value of 2007, the taxable value is still less than it was in 2007. So in other words, we are being asked to do 20 years later with fewer tax dollars per taxable dollar than we did 20 years ago. That's a scenario that just does not work. And that's what I'm talking about when I say that there's that impact of Proposal A and Headley that is impacting our local communities. So you can see what would have happened if we were able to levy based on where we were in 2007. You can see that every single one of our levies would come down significantly to be able to raise the same level of tax dollars. In 2012, the community approved the special assessment district for police and fire, partially as a result of what happened as a result of Headley and Proposal A post the 2008 housing crash. And you can see that at this stage in the game, even 17 or 15 years later, we're still very reliant on the SAD to fund our public safety operations. It has come down a little bit over time and has stayed generally in that 30 to 35% range, so it's staying pretty consistent, and so it's not getting any worse by any means, so that's a good thing, but it is still a factor in what we're looking at right now. One of the things that has been a big impact for this upcoming year, since public safety is the majority of our expenditures as a township, is healthcare. You know, historically, I would have said that, of course, that pension and OPEB are the biggest concerns I see on the horizon. I really have to add healthcare to that mix. If anything, I would actually say healthcare may be the biggest concern I see on the horizon. We had a 9% increase last year. We had a 7% increase the year before, and early predictions are a 16% increase in our healthcare premiums for 2027. That is not sustainable. When our overarching revenues as a result of Headley and Proposal A are only going up on average by 2.7 to 3%, we can't sustain increases in any area that averages more than 3% a year. And healthcare costs are increasing dramatically. And we're going to see that impact through the SAD, because that puts us in the option of either we don't fill vacancies or we don't have healthcare. We can't do both on the current levy as it is. Back in 2007, just to kind of recap again on that impact here, in 2007, we only had 2.96 mills that were dedicated for police and fire operations, and it was 20% of our overarching total millages that we were levying as a community. Today, we need 9 mills to accomplish what 3 mills did in 2007, and it makes up 37% of the total. So I know I beat that drum. I'm going to beat it again. Residents need to hear that as well, that Proposal A and Headley are problematic for our community, and we need our state legislators to do something to resolve this conundrum. Overall, though, for the overall general fund as a whole, for looking at the budget that we are asking the levy to support, here are the last couple of years of activity, and then looking forward to what's being proposed for next year. One of the reasons why the total revenues looks like it's changed really dramatically is because we've separated out the public safety special assessment district into a separate bucket in the last 2 years. And so that was still in there in those older numbers. And so there wasn't really anything else that changed. It was just how that was included. We also had all the money from ARPA that was flowing through in those last couple of years. So being somewhere in the 35 to 38 million range, that's right in line with where we have been for the general fund, and I expect that to remain consistent. When we look at how the tax dollars are being used and where they're coming from in terms of our revenue sources, we see that property taxes makes up about 49% of our revenues, fines and forfeits are 5%, other revenues at 16%, federal grants, we're not really anticipating any right now, so that's at 0. State revenues is 24%, and licenses, permits, and charges are at 3%. Those numbers are all very consistent in terms of proportions as to where they have been for the last several years. Depending on the particular year, they may waver by 1 or 2%, but basically it's 50% property taxes, 25% state revenues, 25% everything else. I am concerned about state revenue sharing. Again, I heard Treasurer Eubanks was the speaker at my conference on Friday, and she was talking about the fact that sales tax revenue, which is the lion's share of the constitutional revenue that we receive, is still not back to where it was in 2023. So, and they don't forecast it to be back to where it was in 2023 until at least 2028. So we are trying to deal with a decrease in state revenue sharing to us due to a decrease in sales tax revenue while all of our expenditures are increasing. So that is also a factor that is at play right now. That is simply the numbers that backed up the pie chart from the previous slide. When we look at where we are spending our money consistently, personnel is the largest piece of the pie by far at 75% of our expenditures for next year, followed by other services and charges, the cost of actually running the government and the departments, capital outlay at 4%, and supplies at 2%. Again, that is very consistent with where it has been over the last several years, and I don't see any causes for concern there. That does complete the slides that I have for the presentation for the public hearing. Again, it is the second lowest overall millage rate that we have levied in the last 11 years that is being proposed, but there are still some headwinds on the horizon. And at this time, I can take any questions.
Questions from the board? Questions from the public? You have to come up to the mic. That way, somebody's watching home, you may ask their question, right? It's just not to Google it.
So, is this spending and are the accounts receivable and accounts payable consistent with other similar townships?
You're talking about for this slide, for like where we spend our money? It is. Personnel is always somewhere in the 70s.
Okay.
It could be like last year for us, it was 78, but capital was smaller last year. It just depends on the year. But personnel is the majority of the bucket. We did not change. We did add. We added one police officer and one firefighter to the ranks overall for this coming year, but it didn't really change the percentage.
Other questions from the public?
Hi, good evening. John Keenan. A few things. What is the total taxable value of all the property classifications in the township of Redford, do you know?
1.2 billion, give or take 100 million or so.
That's close.
Yeah.
And you're recommending a 1 mil increase, a levy?
No, I'm not recommending a 1 mil increase, no. I'm recommending on the SAD a potential increase of 0.25. no, excuse me, a potential increase of 0.15 and seeing a potential decrease on the street lighting of 0.1.
Okay, but you're using the inflation multiplier that is established by the state every year, is that correct?
Yes, 2.7%
All
this
right.
year.
Relative to other, well, strike that, I don't want to ask that question. Don't want to embarrass anybody. The question I have is, what areas would you reduce or could reduce in the budget to reduce the millage to attract people to buy houses in the town? I mean, would you look at the police and fire millage? Would you look at the garbage millage? What would you look at, if anything?
Well, we no longer have a garbage millage.
Okay.
I don't know that I believe that the millage rate per se is the biggest problem. I think the biggest problem that we have right now is that the Hadley and Proposal A have created the scenario where we can have two residents who are living in the same home side by side with each other, and they are paying drastically different amounts of taxes based on how recently they purchased that home.
Okay, what is your...
That's what's causing the problem.
Okay, what is your assessment with respect to whether that will politically fly in Lansing, with regard to your opinion?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's hard. There's no scenario that doesn't create winners and losers.
Okay, all right. So I have some understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the Headley Amendment was passed to fill in the budget, and there's a transfer tax on real estate, which supplements the state budget. Is that not true?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Okay, what I'm asking you is, my understanding in the initial negotiation between the various municipalities with respect to taxes, that the Headley was passed on the presumption that there would be a transfer tax in real estate to supplement the income, the state revenue. Is that correct?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay, so you don't understand the political history of the Headley?
Well, I just want to...
Okay, so
I wouldn't say that,
Okay,
but
so Mr. Keenan, let me just, if you have questions on what we're presenting, it's
Okay.
fine. We're not here to do a history.
Okay,
lesson.
no, I understand. Okay, I apologize.
That's
I
okay.
Get a little
Just get back
carried
on the
away
track.
sometimes.
Get back on the track.
Okay, and I know that you went to Cousins as well as I did, and I feel some affinity for my friend here who went to Cousins Hall at university.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, you think that, quite frankly, the only way that we can do better is to maybe persuade our legislatures to adjust the taxable value of the property taxes in the state to remedy the problem.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that's the only way to do it, because I don't know what all the options are.
Okay.
I do think that for potential homeowners, when they are evaluating where to move, and if they're strictly looking at millage rates, it is a deterrent right now. And the reason our millage rate is where it is a direct result of Headley and Proposal A.
Okay, and you wouldn't recommend any, I know spent a little time with police and fire with you, and reducing that would not assist in any way or form. We reduce either the SAD millage or the police and fire millage.
Well, it would certainly have the impact of reducing the millage. The question at that point
What we
becomes,
do with the extra money?
right, I mean, you're recommending that you shrink the police department, shrink the fire department, lay off other employees.
Okay, I understand. Listen, thank you. You always do a nice job. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public? Any other questions from the board? Motion would be in order to close the public hearing.
To the chair,
Trustee Jackson.
I move that we close the public hearing on the proposed tax levy to support the proposed fiscal year 26-27 budget.
Support.
Moved and supported. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Trustee Taylor? Absent. Trustee Jackson.
Yes.
Clerk Sanders, yes. Trustee Reeves, absent. Treasurer Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Supervisor McCray.
Yes, motion passes. Next, we move on to the consent agenda items. Treasurer Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Supervisor McCray. I move to approve the consent agenda items as follows. The minutes of the regular meeting held on February 24th of 2026. The warrant list of bills as of March 4th of 2026 in the amount of $9,382,804.41.
Support.
Been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to new business, Director Bonner.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Before you this evening is the resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2026-2027 General Appropriations Act as required by Public Act 2 of the state of Michigan, along with the required schedules A, B, and C, which includes the tax levies for the past couple of years and the budget book prepared by department or fund as appropriate. We were required to hold a public hearing, as we just did this evening, and we were also required to publish notice of that in a newspaper of record, which was done on February 23rd and March 2nd. Other than that, there's nothing in the document that has changed from what was presented to the board in late January.
Questions from the board?
To the chair.
Trustee Jackson.
Director Bonerick, on page 7, general government started out in 24-25 at 5.7 million, and then has been a significant decrease over the past 3 years. I mean, the decreases in expenses are nice, but what's causing these decreases?
Some of the grant revenue runs through there. In particular, ARPA was running through there, and so the last major year that had ARPA in it was 2024-25. So we used ARPA funds to pay for police and fire, so you saw an equivalent offset on the SAD side in that year.
Okay, elections were a significant increase. And I do know that we have an election coming up in November, but we also had an election in November of 24. So it seems like there was a disconnect on how much we paid last year versus what we're gonna pay next year. So what significant increase is there?
Well, it really would be about what we paid 2 years ago versus what we're going to pay next year, right? So it really would be the 557 versus the 703. The biggest difference being primarily that we had an employee that was in the clerk's department that we moved to the elections department. So those costs moved. And if you look up at the clerk line, you also can see kind of the same 2 years that line came down quite a bit. So that's the majority of it.
Okay. Page 8, just a confirmation that the Parks and Recs had a significant increase, but I'm assuming that's due to the new wellness center.
It is. So, the cell tower funding is funding that we generally kind of set aside to use as needed. So some years, depending on the projects that are going on, we see expenditures, and some years we don't. We knew that for the first couple of years, we were going to need to subsidize the operations of the recreation center. And so there's I think, $250,000 being allocated to the rec center from the cell tower funding.
That's all I've got.
So we need a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Trustee King.
I move approval of the resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2026-2027 Charter Township of Redford General Appropriations Act, along with Schedules A, B, and C.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. The motion on the floor is for approval of the resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2026 through 2027 Charter Township of Redford General Appropriations Act, along with Schedules A, B, and C. Any other questions? Roll call vote.
Trustee Jackson.
Yes.
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Trustee Taylor absent. Trustee King.
Yes.
Trustee Reed absent. Clerk Sanders, yes. Supervisor McCray.
Yes, motion carries. Next, we're going to talk about the amendment to the ordinance regarding boards, commissions, and committees. Director Bonner-Reich, do you want to start?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So this is a task that Supervisor McCray and I and Attorney Chubb have been working on for a couple of years, and we kept getting to the 90% line, and then something would come up. And so recently, we asked Trustee Taylor if she would begin working, pick up where we had left off, and begin working with Attorney Chubb to get this to the finish line. And I think they did a really nice job. The main thing that we were looking to do, and I know that Mr. Chubb can speak more to it, is that we kind of found that the way the various boards and commissions were in here was kind of hodgepodge. So some referenced needing bylaws, and some didn't, and some had compensation, and some didn't. So this whole section that he added at the beginning was to kind of create uniform requirements that all of the boards and commissions need, and then he went through and kind of pulled out from the individual sections the things then that were inconsistent. So that's the kind of the overview of how we got to where we are, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Chubb.
Sure. Yep, that's correct. We also just generally cleaned it up so that there were some gender references that we made gender neutral. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission was previously named the Diversity and Inclusion Commission, and Trustee Taylor had made several changes in that section just to add that name to be the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission. And additionally, we noted that the Senior Citizens Commission and the Sister City Commission were previously omitted from the ordinance, and so we just added them in to properly codify them. I did have some questions. I wanted to make sure people understood. There were questions as to why some commissions and committees aren't in this ordinance, such as like the Zoning Board of Appeals, the DDA, the Planning Commission, and all of those. And the answer is just that, I apologize, all of those are created by state law, and so the state laws provide for the way that they're incorporated, for their terms, all of the necessary provisions governing those committees, and it creates inconsistency if we adopt the same language and mirror it in our local ordinances, and then the state changes state law. So it's a lot easier to just have those stand alone through the state legislative acts that created them. And also, just as a reminder, this is a first reading. If there are any changes that you would like to make prior to the second reading, we can certainly do that. I believe Director Bonner-Reich and I talked about making a change to the donations. It's currently set in section 2-203 that donations of $100 or more must be approved by the Board of Trustees. We thought actually the $100 might actually be a fairly common figure, so maybe we should just move that to more than $100, very minor change, but that's the type of thing that we can certainly do prior to the second reading.
Questions from the board?
Through the chair.
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
I just want to make a comment. I know that, Redford has been doing for several years, trying to clean up all the ordinances, and I think this is very good. We are, proceeding well, and thank you to everyone involved that, this is an semblance of organization, and try to get everything in line in order for them to assemble the same in every way as far as the ordinance is concerned. So thank you.
To the chair.
Trustee Jackson.
Just one quick observation. We want to make everything consistent among all the commissions, but the very first line says they may establish bylaws, which would give some organizations the ability to not have bylaws.
And I think that's just because what we have done is all of the what we would consider mandatory operating standards are placed in the ordinance. The bylaws would then be specific
each commission and kind of what the nature of their intent or goal is. And so with some of the commissions that don't meet as regularly, they may be satisfactorily governed by what's in this ordinance itself. I think
And
that
not
was
need
the
laws.
Other questions from the board? I'd like to say this is the first reading only, so you have more time to digest it and mark it up if that's what needs to be done. I know that to get to this point, we did a lot of work for a long time, and then the rest of the world caught up with us, and we had more pressing issues than this. So I'm grateful, that Trustee Taylor was able to work with Mr. Chubb to put the finishing touches on. So if there's no other questions, then I'd entertain a motion to approve the first reading.
Chair,
Clerk Sanders.
I move to approve the first reading to amend ordinance regarding boards, commissions, and committees.
Support.
Moved and supported, so the motion on the floor is to approve the first reading to amend ordinance regarding boards, commissions, and committees. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Trustee Reese, absent. Clerk Sanders? Yes. Treasurer Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Trustee Taylor? Absent. Supervisor McCray?
Yes, motion carries. Moving on
That's
to
everything I have before you tonight, so everyone have a great evening.
Oh, okay,
You too.
yeah,
Thank
drive
you.
safe. Okay, next is new business number 3, Director Bonner.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I believe this is the last item I have in my half of the agenda tonight. Before you, this has been a project that you all know that Treasurer Kavanaugh, myself, and Assistant Finance Director Harper have been working on, which has been evaluating the RFPs that were submitted regarding a need to go out for new banking services. And it was not an easy decision by any means. There were 6 submissions. We ended up interviewing 4, 2 larger firms, 2 smaller firms. They all had pros and cons. We had to go back and check the references. And whenever you're dealing with professional services, it's just not as concrete as simple projects are. It's a lot about reputation and references and that relationship and where do we feel most comfortable. And at this time, it is our recommendation that we should move forward with Huntington. So we are asking for the board to award the bid to Huntington and authorize us to begin the process of finalizing the terms of that agreement and planning the transition process. We do anticipate that the total cost of this will be about $63,000 per year. That's actually less than what we're paying for banking services now. So there's no need to amend the budget or anything like that because it's less than what's already in there.
To the chair.
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
Again, this is just a comment. I want to thank, of course, the Watson and Yates, absolutely, who helped us through, because this is the first time that I think the township has gone through changing banks, and it's quite the task. I want to also thank our staff and our finance director or operations for all the work, because there's a lot of research done in the back side of this in order for us to review and to interview. So all this was compiled in the background of it. This was, like he said, difficult because we weren't sure what we were looking for, but we did all the questions and we posed them to every one of them. And it was quite a decision because we were fluctuating between 3, let's say. But thank you for all this work, and the work is just about to begin. So anyway, but thank you, Adam.
Any questions from the board? Hearing no questions, what's the pleasure of the board?
To the chair.
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
I move to approve the township's RFP request for banking services to be awarded to Huntington Bank in the approximate amount of $63,000 a year.
Support.
Supported by trustee Jackson. So the motion on the floor is to approve the township's RFP request for banking services to be awarded to Huntington Bank in the approximate amount of $63,000 a year. Any other questions? Roll call vote.
Trustee Taylor, absent. Clerk Sanders, yes. Trustee Reese, absent. Trustee King.
Yes.
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Trustee Jackson.
Yes.
Supervisor McCray.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you to Rudy for all that work. It's a big job.
Yeah.
Next up, new business number 4, Director Stokes.
Good evening, Honorable Board. The first item on the agenda is that we're requesting the approval for the extension of a one-year extension for family entertainment properties at the Redford Ice Arena. As we've discussed in the past, currently they have been leasing the arena for probably the past 20 years. And we have, over the last several years, created an extension where they have a one-year extension that goes from June to, of this year through May of the following year. And as we decide what we're going to be doing with the ice arena in the future. And then the same caveat is that if the township board does not tell them that we do not wish to not renew, they get another year extension as well. So this could go through 28. We've had the attorneys look over this. It's the same extension that we've been doing with them. I did include and ask Keith to include any of their maintenance and upgrades that they've been doing over the past several years. They do have Lawrence Tech in there playing as a collegiate team. They've done some renovations in both the locker rooms, offices, and their boards to ensure that they're safe enough and up to the standards of the collegiate level as well. So it is the same template as before. It has already been approved and looked over by our township attorneys. So if you have any questions.
Yes, Director Stokes, this is a cost neutral for the township, correct?
Correct.
Yes, so we're breaking even on this and we don't have any cost involved in it.
Correct. The only thing that we would have to maintain is the parking lot. And we just redid that about 1.5 years, 2 years ago.
Okay. Questions from the board?
To the chair.
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
I know we've talked about this for a very long time, as far as since I've been here too. Is it possible that we can have a study session, let's say in the fall?
Absolutely.
To go over this and to look at our options as to what we need to do beyond breaking even?
Yes, absolutely. So I know we've, the original conversation, and we did have study sessions in the past, because when we first were looking for a location for the new Recreation and Wellness Center, this came up. And then, obviously, we're at a different location. So we created this to give us some breathing room to get into the new center. But I know that this is a topic that, many of the board members and the community would like to discuss on, what do we do with this facility moving forward? And since it's not costing us anything, and we have somebody leasing it and running that themselves, this gives us a little bit of time to go ahead and have another study session now that we're moved in to the new center.
No, and I would like that, because I know that in the past, sometimes he's been a little reluctant and in order to do things, especially, per the contract. So I know that that's a frustration, and now that you have your focus elsewhere, it is something that we should look into as to going forward.
Sure.
In the future, so.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, if you could set that up, that would be great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Other questions from the board?
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Jackson.
Director Stokes, have we gotten any recommendations as to what we could do with that from Wade Trim?
We haven't asked Wade Trim on this. We did the first study with Plant Moran Cress, I believe it was. Basically to look at, we still have that, so if there's any new trustees or board members, we can definitely get that information to you. Basically, they looked at the arena, the age of it, the condition of different things, what we would need to do, but that was more focused on a rec part of it. So we can definitely, look more into that if that's something that the board would like to do, is ask, what other uses could be utilized there. I know we've had some internal discussions, both with myself, with Supervisor McCray. Some trustees have reached out and asked, and then with the police department as well. And Mike. Can't forget Mike. But yeah, so I think, it's a good structured bones facility, and I think there's some exciting opportunities that we could utilize and bring more additions to the community for sure.
Other questions from the board? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
To the chair,
Trustee Jackson.
I move approval for 1 year's extension of the Redford Ice Arena lease and operating agreement between Redford Township and Family Entertainment Properties Incorporated.
Support.
Supported by Treasurer Kavanaugh. Motion is for approval for a 1-year extension for the Redford Ice Arena lease and operating agreement between Redford Township and Family Entertainment Properties Incorporated. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Trustee Taylor, absent. Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Clerk Sanders, yes. Trustee Reese, absent. Treasurer Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Supervisor McCray?
Yes, motion carries. Director Stokes, bring us home.
All right, so the final agenda item is, I came before the board when we first had opened the rec center with a janitorial service company. Unfortunately, that janitorial service company was not providing the service that we had asked for. So as of February 9th, we terminated those services with ABM. They also were not providing the service and then asked for an increase after what they had already proposed. So we decided that it was best, because we weren't receiving those services, to go ahead and terminate that contract. We did look back at all of the additional quotes that we had received, and I provided them on the second tabulation sheet for you. The second one that came in, because A&C was disqualified based on they hire contractors and not employees. So the next one on that list would have been Right Way Carpet and Janitorial Services, which many of you know are currently in several of our buildings in the township as well. We met with them and explained what the scope of work was at the center. I think there was additional things that they did or that they quoted that weren't necessarily supposed to be in there. So after we went over them, they redid that quote to make it accurately reflect what we were looking for. And their quote came in at $8,333 a month, which would be the next lowest qualified. So at this time, we're looking to contract with them for the $8,333 a month. They have been doing interim services with us and have been doing a phenomenal job, just like they do in all of our other buildings. So unfortunately, with the way the quote process worked, we had somebody lower at that point, and we thought we were going to get a great service, but it didn't happen that way.
Well, I just want to say that, take a moment to thank Teresa for what she's doing down there, because this cleaning company was a challenge. And
Bless you.
herself and George and the rest of her crew were picking up all the slack for the company that was not doing their job. So it was a challenge to go through this, and I appreciate the hard work that y'all are doing down there. And I think that they've had this person in there for a little bit now, a month, to fill in until we got a contract. So I feel pretty comfortable with it. Teresa's pretty comfortable with it, and she's the one that's got to manage it. So I think it's a good fit.
To the chair.
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
Were there any penalties for terminating the previous contract?
No.
Okay. I'm done.
You're done?
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions from the board? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
To the chair,
Trustee Jackson.
I move approval of Recreation and Wellness Center janitorial services to be awarded to Right Way Carpet and Janitorial Services in the amount of $8,333 per month, to be paid from Fund 580, the Recreation and Wellness Center.
Support.
Supported by Treasurer Kavanaugh. So the motion on the floor is approval of the Recreation and Wellness Center janitorial services be awarded to Right Way Carpet and Janitorial Services in the amount of $8,333 per month to be paid from Fund 580, the Recreation and Wellness Center. Any other questions? Roll call.
Trustee Taylor, absent. Trustee Reeves, absent. Trustee Jackson,
Yes.
Trustee King,
Yes.
Clerk Sanders, yes. Treasurer Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Supervisor McCray.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Announcements from the board. Okay, I only have two. One is that we have, the State of the Township will be this Thursday at the Rec and Wellness Center. Please come. Tickets, they're still selling tickets. I don't know how many tickets they're still selling, but if you have your tickets, please be there. It's a lunchtime event. The doors open 11:30, and the program starts at noon. The only other thing is that I want to be one of the first to wish Treasurer Kavanaugh a happy birthday, which is tomorrow. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other business for us to come before the board? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.